This is Beyond the Bell Tower, where an elite group of North Carolina State University students give us a behind-the-scenes look at their steps to success and show us how they attain even their lofty goals. These students, who are in the top 10% of the country, are active in Student Support Services at NC State, a nationally recognized program designed to provide support for low-income, first-generation college students. Nationally, this population has an 11% graduation rate within 6 years. The Student Support Services students surpass that rate each year and go on to become doctors, dentists, accountants, and engineers. They work at Google, Apple, and the NCAA. They have earned PhDs in Ivy League colleges. These students go well beyond the bell tower to reach this level of success.
Welcome back to Beyond the Bell Tower. I'm Ricky Dowles, and I'm here with Taylor Adams. Hi, Taylor.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. How about you?
I'm doing fine.
That's good. This is my first time actually meeting Taylor. So, what do you want me to know about you? Because, like I said, this is our first time meeting, so...
I'm just a normal student. Been here entirely too long, trying to graduate this spring. And Sarah snitched on me and told the people I know about cars. So hopefully I can pass this knowledge on to people interested about the dangers and benefits of buying a used car.
Absolutely. I'm glad she snitched on you because I'm one of those naive people who thinks like, oh, money exchange, now I get a car kind of situation and doesn't even think about like all the other elements that go along with that. I don't know. So, yeah. You are a student at NC State. You said you've been here entirely too long.
Entirely too long.
So, what year are you now? You're a senior, I'm assuming?
A super duper senior.
Super duper senior. I'm going to probably end up being a super senior. Maybe not a super duper senior.
There's nothing wrong with
that. That 4.5-year situation might just go down.
Past that.
What are you studying?
Textile technology.
Ah, okay. Mm-hmm. So absolutely nothing to do with cars. Oh, wow. Okay. So textile, what did you say? Textile?
Technology.
And technology. Okay. Obviously, you're at the right school for that.
Mm-hmm.
How did you get involved with Trio?
So I actually came to school with an intent to be mechanical engineering, and due to bad study habits and bad ways to handle stress, that didn't really work out. I was actually just going to leave school, and my Pac Promise counselor actually reached out to Trio and Student Support Services and got me into contact with Sarah Wright, and basically became best friends since that. She's always been there. She's gave me a kick in the butt when I needed it, been supportive. Anytime I needed something little or how to work some type of system in the school, she's basically always shown me the way. And I owe her a big thanks for just helping me out and being here and hopefully graduating this semester.
I like how that hopefully got snuck in there. Keep hope alive.
Gotta keep hope alive.
No, I love Sarah. She's also my academic coach. She's great. Got me involved with like podcasting and everything, which I think is going to be, because I'm studying communication media. So like this is like where I live. And so she's gotten me involved with this. And so, yeah, I'm glad that she told me about you because I was like, I was in her office just talking about like, oh my God, I was trying to buy a car over break and I just had no clue what I was doing. And she was like, well, you know, I have this student who knows about car stuff and he would be great, you know, for you to talk to. And I'm like, what if we got that on air though? Like,
two birds with one stone.
Like, what if we, you know, just not only for my sake, but for any other student out there who's like, I don't know what I'm doing. I am going to buy a car. Because out of all of us, like, how many of us really know what we're doing when it comes to, like, being an adult? I have no clue. I'm about to try and buy an apartment now. I'm going to have to find another Trio student to help me with that. Like, I don't know how to make these big purchases. So I'm just like, I need to talk to somebody about this. And I know there are other people who feel the same way. So, like, let's put it on the air. But, you know a little bit about cars and everything. So, like, how did you get into knowing about cars? Like, what sparks your knowledge on learning about cars?
So, let's see. I was a young 18-year-old back in my prime, working like 50-hour weeks to buy my first car. You know, I wanted that freedom going to college, tired of taking the Wolf line. Like any naive person, I went and bought basically the first car with a color I liked without, you know, looking at it and stuff like that. And that's probably the biggest mistake you can make when you buying a used car, buying the first thing that catches your eye. So it runs well as any used car would. They make sure it can run and get it off the lot so they don't have to take it back. And it started breaking down, and it's pretty expensive, especially me being a broke college student, to let people work on your car. So over time, as things happened, I learned what I could and could not repair by myself, and just gained knowledge that way over the time.
Yeah. So that sounds like, you know, kind of like one of those, you know, learn from your mistakes kind of situations. I know for a fact that, like, my plan over winter break was to kind of do like similar situation. I was just going to like buy the first thing with like that was pretty cheap and that I liked. I know I like looked at this this dealership that my parents usually work with, and I was like, oh, okay, my parents work with them. Like, they're super affordable and reliable. Like, it's no problem. It'll be whatever. And so I was just looking at their website and like I was going to buy whatever was just cheap and good to have. And, you know, the universe decided to stop me in my tracks. And I'm like, that's actually a pretty good thing, because to be honest, I have no clue what to do when it comes to making like that kind of purchase. So, yeah, I have like no experience whatsoever when it comes to cars.
I understand.
Yeah, no, I was just like, oh, it's white. I like white cars, you know?
Same way I was. Red. I love the color red. Go buy it.
Yeah. And like, I remember like my dad, whenever I was home over break, he was, you know, just showing me the ins and outs of his car and just talking about like the transmission, this, and, oh, I have to change the brake pads out. And I'm just like, what? That's stuff you have to do with a car?
Yeah.
I didn't even think about like, oh God, like, how do you know the difference between a good car and a bad car when you're shopping for a car, especially, you know, low income kind of background. It's just like you don't have like the experience. Maybe your parents don't have the experience if you ask them. So I guess I just kind of want to know, in your experience, what would you say like to look for when you're going to these dealerships? Like when, you know, the salesman is there and he's trying to sweet talk you into something, you know, like how do you like stay knowledgeable in what exactly to look for?
I guess the first thing with talking to a car salesman, don't listen to anything they say, because they're just trying to get the sale. They're not trying to help you. They're going to compliment you any way they can. They're going to try to butter you up, as long as what they can do to get the sale. Research the different type of cars and look what you're trying to buy. Look for an affordable car. Don't try to stunt and buy a Mercedes. Don't try to buy a used BMW.
Sir, who has Mercedes money?
See, the thing is, you can buy a used Mercedes for probably the same price you can buy a used Honda, and that looks good on paper until you start trying to having to fix it. There's a reason that they're so cheap. It's because people are like, oh, cool, I got me a nice 03 Mercedes. Look at me, I'm big boy doing it.
No.
And then that first thing breaks, and they're like, oh, it's $1,000 part. But research what you're trying to buy. Look what commonly breaks on a car that's old. Look at the common problems with it. Ask about that. Ask for the VIN number. Look for your Carfax reports. It's things I wish I did. Look under the car. Look for leaks. I can go down a list of things I wished I looked at if you want me to. I can go down a list of it's a straight checklist of things I wish I would have looked at before I bought the car, because I could have avoided so many problems. The thing with buying a used car, though, you're going to have to accept the fact that something's going to break, because this is an older car. Something's going to die. Something's going to go out. You just have to be ready for it and not panic. So I know I'm like just talking in circles, but I guess the biggest thing is know the background of the car. Go in there with confidence and don't let someone sway you saying, well, this, and just go in there with confidence in the research, and just don't let someone sway you different into buying something that you're not comfortable buying. And if you don't feel comfortable buying, just step away, because usually your gut's probably right about it.
Most definitely. I'm really glad that I didn't go through with buying that car, because I probably would have been stuck with like a piece of junk. So you were talking about like used cars and like how like eventually something's going to break down, or, you know, just in general mess up. Like, would you say, like, that's an inevitability when it comes to buying a used car. So would you say that it would be like more beneficial for, you know, first time buyers of cars? Would it be best for their first car to be a used car? Or would you like say, you know, go for that new model, like go to a dealership like a Honda or a Toyota or whatever dealership and just like knowing you're going to get a reliable car there? Or are they both pretty reliable? Like I
mean, honestly, yes, a new car is going to be more reliable. And even if it's not, you get that warranty with it. But I just feel like your due diligence and just looking at the car, you can see what problems are going to happen with it in future problems down the road. If you just take the time to look under it, you can see if leaks are there. And even if it's a small leak, like the dealer's probably going to try and tell you, I still wouldn't buy that car because you never know when that small leak's going to turn into a bigger leak. Small things like that. Just look for those small problems that could turn into bigger problems down the road. Again, not every used car is going to be perfect. You're going to have to buy something with maybe a crusty carpet or something like that. But as long as the engine looks...
once you detail it.
Yeah. But as long as the engine looks decently good, you know, no leaks, your tie rod, your boots on your car, they aren't ripped. You don't have grease behind your tires and things like that. I'd say go ahead and buy it. And just be ready to put up maybe a couple extra $100 into it over the next few years.
Exactly. The cost of like maintenance and everything. I found a lot about that in my research. So I knew that when it comes to used cars that, yeah, the parts are probably going to be like the cost of upkeep is going to be the most expensive part of buying a used car. In that case, would you say like the cost is about the same, or like when in comparison to buying a new car? So if you're going to buy a used car for, I don't know anything about car prices, so this price may just be like off the wall. But let's say like a used car is like maybe like $10,000 or something like that. And you have to like pay for the price of like upkeep, or if something breaks down or if something's like wears out, versus like buying I hope this isn't too much, like a $20,000 car or something. Like, is it going to eventually add up on one end or the other?
Well, I drive a 96 Honda Accord, so the car is just about as old as me. And I say I spend probably about $300 to $400 a year on something that either goes wrong or just general upkeep of the car. Now, given that, I feel like it probably would it evens out buying a new car over the time because, one, my insurance is only about $30 a month because I just have, what's it called? Not comprehensive, but the insurance that you have if you hit somebody. Liability. Yeah, I just have liability on it. I'm not going to fully insure a 96 Honda Accord. It's just to get me through school. So I feel like things like that, it evens out over the long run. So that's why I prefer buying a used car over a new car this day and age, especially given my financial situation right now. So
absolutely. I'm glad you mentioned insurance because that was a part of my research that I did. When talking about insurance and liability, you were like looking for that word there. And I'm just like, I don't know how to help you. Like, I know nothing about insurance. And that was like an extra cost that I was thinking about when it was like, when I first started thinking about buying this car, I was like, oh yeah, this is going to be super simple. I've been saving for it. You know, I just hand off the cash, like, bam, there it is.
Same thing.
Give me a car.
I didn't know about the taxes. You have to go to the DMV and pay and all that.
I'm like, I have to get a tag? What?
Has to pass inspection. We live in North Carolina, so I has to pass emissions, all that type of stuff.
So I'm just like, I don't really know anything about insurance, and I probably should. So I did a little bit of research on, you know, insuring cars. And so just looking at like insurance for cars is like this belief that it's going to be more expensive to insure a newer car versus an older car. I know that there's like certain situations where the opposite could be true, but in your experience, like what are your thoughts on insuring like a new car versus an older used car?
Well, there's a lot that goes into it. Newer cars are probably going to be more expensive because it's going to be harder to replace parts if the insurance company has to pay for it. I'm not 100% sure if this is true, but I know I had to buy full insurance until I actually paid off the entirety of the car and I actually owned it. So that was like $150 a month, and being an unexperienced driver at the time, it went up. So I think I had to put my mom actually on the insurance to bring it down a bit there. So right now, again, as I said, I pay about $30 a month for just liability insurance on a 97 Accord compared to my mom, who pays about $150 for a Toyota Camry, which has full insurance because, again, she's paying it off still. So she has to keep that full insurance just in case she totals it or something like that happens. So that's the good thing. If you buy a used car, you're definitely going to pay it off quicker than a 60-month loan for a new car. So that insurance, you can drop it down to liability if you're confident in your driving skills and don't see yourself causing any accidents.
That's a risky living. I'm super paranoid, so I know I would probably do like full insurance the entire time. I know that research has said that like used cars are actually like more likely to be stolen. Like Definitely. I got this off the DMV website. I'm like, used cars?
My car is actually probably in the top 10 list of most stolen cars. So.
Oh, geez. Like that didn't make any sense to me. I was like, how are used cars, like older cars, the more likely
no anti-theft systems. The keys, after the body model of my car, they started putting the chips in the keys where if it wasn't the right chip, it completely locked down the engine. So that's why it costs like $60, $70, $80 to get a key replaced, where I can go get a bunch of my keys for like $10 because you can actually hot wire my car. But newer cars, they have the chip in the key, so you can't hot wire them. My car is like a walking, hey, come steal me type car. But
I'm glad you explained that then. I was doing this research. I'm like, that makes zero sense.
Being on campus, I haven't worried about getting stolen, broken in. It actually has happened to me. So make sure if you're going to buy like a 96 Honda Accord, lock your doors.
Roll up your windows.
Lock your doors. But I haven't like feared it getting stolen. Just don't leave anything valuable in it that you don't want to lose.
Yeah. Yeah, because it says like if it's more likely to be stolen, if it's like a make or a model that's more likely to be stolen, insurance is going to be higher on that. So in that case, like the older car is more expensive to insure than like the newer car with like the theft system and alerts and all the other good stuff.
It might be because I have like Direct General, so they're like a really cheap insurance. They didn't really take that into account. But is another thing with being stolen is because there's a high demand for those older like high inventory cars. Like there are a bunch of 96 Accords still on the road. If you go out and like look for it, you'll find a bunch.
Yeah.
So people want those parts and you can just chop those up and sell them more than the actual value of the car. So that's another big thing. But again, being on campus, I haven't really had to worry about that.
Yeah, no. But we all understand our struggles on campus. We don't want to make it worse for the next guy.
Yeah. But yeah, just lock your doors because we are on a public campus, so CD people will walk by and look inside your car. But I haven't had the like struggle of someone driving off with my car yet.
I did, people sell the older cars for parts. So I'm like, oh, okay, because the parts are like real common and they're, easy to come around. They're expensive to replace. So obviously they would be expensive to sell. But yeah, you were talking about just like making sure the engine's good and just like looking under the, what is it?
If you can, all cars should come with a jack. So I'd lift it up and just look for oil spots under there, oil spots under the transmission, the power steering, look for leaking power steering fluid. Because again, that's probably the sign of a bad O-ring, which is everywhere in your car. And the older your car gets, they tend to get worse. So if you see a leak down there, I probably would just walk away from that car. The salesman's gonna be like, oh, it's a small leak, and old used cars, they all leak. But you never know when that big leak's going to turn into, or that small leak's going to turn into a bigger leak. So that's a sign I look to walk away. Also, look behind your drive tires. Your drive tires are the tires the engine actually sends power to. So look up what type of car it is. If it's a front wheel, an all wheel, rear wheel type car, and see if there's grease behind there. If there's grease, again, I'd walk away there because that's probably the sign of a failing drive system. Don't want to deal with that. That's tie rod replacement and all that stuff. Could be bad bearings. Don't want to deal with that. Walk away then. So there's things like that. Look for fluids, all that type of stuff, because don't want to have to put too much money up front than you already have to.
You like really seem to like know what exactly to look for. And I'm just like listening and I'm just like, yeah. Okay.
This is all from personal experience.
I'm like, how do you even know what to look for? Like, how did you learn to know what to look for?
But like I said, just personal experience, things that I've seen in my car, seen in other cars, things someone told me when they looked at my car. Things I've talked to people, made mechanic friends, because I come from Gastonia. It's not like an upper metropolitan place, but it's between like a town in a city. So you can just make friends with people. And luckily, I bought my car from a used dealership that wasn't like a mainstream one. It was just like a small one. So they were good to me. Every time I had a problem with my car, they'd fix it if I just bought the parts and brought it to them. I didn't have to pay for labor or anything. So while they fix it, I'd look under there and see what I saw. So I guess the biggest thing is don't be afraid to, just get to know your car. Just look at it and get under it and don't be afraid to get dirty. So
were there any like resources you use to help you figure out like certain like parts, like when you said like just look at your car and get to know your car? Were there like people you asked, like websites you use, like anything you looked up in particular? Like, did we live in the age of the internet? Like, was there anything like that I could just, hey Siri, how do I do this? Or hey Google, what's going on with my car?
You can probably Google just about anything, but then again, it's hard because if you say you're trying to like recreate a noise on a Google search, and it's kind of hard to recreate that. Like I have a problem with my car right now. I know what it is, and I'm just being really lazy to fix it. But let me see. The drive belt's making this weird. Well, not the drive belt. The accessory belt is making this weird noise, so it's kind of hard to explain that. It's making this grr 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 noise, and it's like, how do you Google search that? But if you can kind of narrow it down, you can find a lot of websites and forums about your specific type of car that will give you like a checklist of things to check for. So I know it's a pulley there, and I know it's not going to go bad for a while. So I've been lazy in replacing it. It just want to make a noise. So I just Googled, hey, there's a grinding sound. And they were like, well, is it coming from your accessory belt? And then just keep Google searching down that train until you narrow it down to what you think it's going to be. Then you can look at it and see, hey, that is the problem. Then you look, how much is it going to cost to fix it? And what's my best course of action there?
Awesome. And when it comes to fixing your car, I know my dad, he is a self-proclaimed, he studied no sort of mechanic. So I don't understand how he's just like, yeah, I can fix that. Oh, I can do that. I'm sure with experience, he's gotten used to fixing it. But just like for someone like me, for example, who has never really touched an engine in her entire life, should I like try to save the money by like going on the internet or going to like someone who knows what they're doing and trying to fix it on my own, maybe like getting them to look at the part and trying to do it? Or do I need to like take it somewhere?
My rule of thumb is when I go on YouTube and I look at someone fix it, if I'm not confident, I'm like, hey, that's easy, I won't do it. Let's see, 2 weeks ago, an arm thing on my windshield wiper went out, and I was like, oh, that's just 2 bolts and snap it back on, and it works just fine again. I saw, hey, that's not too easy. I mean, that's not too hard. I went and did it myself. But let's say it's like something under my car or something that I feel like if I mess up, I'm probably going to kill myself the next time I drive. I'll let someone else do it for me instead of me doing it because I don't want to risk my life just to save a couple of dollars. So, like, you just use a YouTube video, and like if it's something that you feel like kind of like DIY, if you feel like you can handle it, then you're good to go. Like small things like changing my spark plugs, it's like a 10-minute job instead of paying someone $60, $70 to replace a $2 part. I'd rather just do that myself. Spark plug wires. Sometimes I change my own oil when I'm not lazy. Just small things like that, like general upkeep I can do. But like, let's say my tie rod went out. I'm not going to do that by myself. I'm going to pay someone to do that because that's pretty hard. The general rule of thumb, I can probably say if the work calls for more than an hour worth of labor, it's probably something I'd let someone else do it because it's probably a complicated type of thing to do. But if it's usually less than an hour, I can probably do it myself. Well, that's good to know that, someone who's, like I said, like me, never touched an engine in like my entire life, I would be able to like go online and see, something that takes maybe like 20 minutes to do and like just go ahead and do it. So like you're self-taught in like some of those areas, then like how have you used YouTube to maintain your car? Let's see. I can go down a list of things that broke and I've fixed it myself. I usually just find videos because, again, a 96 Accord is really a common car. And with body models, like when a car company makes a body model, it's generally the same parts. They just change what it looks like on the outside a little bit here and there, but same engine, same parts in general. So I just go on YouTube and probably I'll find someone replacing the exact same thing because you're not going to be the only person in the world with that problem. So I look at how they do it. And again, if I say, hey, I can do that, it's just a couple bolts here and it's right on top of the engine. I don't have to take this out and take this out to get to here and put it back. I'll do it myself and go ahead and do it. Yeah. What other resources do you
use that allow you to do your own like repairs and everything? Like it just YouTube, just Google? Do you like what other like resources do you use?
I tend to like talk to people that know about cars and they tell me if I could probably do it myself or not. A big thing I say in this whole experience with this car is I just got to know people that know about cars, just old people who just grew up around cars their entire life. They'll sit down and pass knowledge to you about things you can and cannot do. Like I said, the person who sold me the car, they were really good to me about replacing things and telling me things I could do myself and giving me that confidence to go do it myself instead of letting a Pep Boys or a Firestone scam me out of a bunch of money. So I say those are the biggest resources, just getting out and talking to actual, mechanics and not like Firestone technicians. I'm talking like those just old people, who just live in oil and are always greasy, and just talking to them and letting them tell you about cars and things like that. That's probably been my biggest thing when it comes to cars.
Yeah, I'm thinking like sort of similarly, my dad's probably going to be my biggest resource when it comes to it, because it seems like every time he like goes to work on a car, he's like, come out here and watch me work on this car. Mm-hmm. I'm like, really, right now? And he's also a truck driver. So he's like always working on his truck and then like working on like the cars that we have at home and like always trying to switch something out. Even though he's not a mechanic, I keep telling you're going to kill us one day. Like, my mom was like, oh, your dad's out there changing the brake pads. I'm like, you're going to die. You're going to die.
I've done that before. It's a pretty hard job. But
I'm like, Dad, you're not a mechanic. Stop.
That's what my mom told me. And when I offered to change her brakes, like, I know you did it on your car, but I want to pay someone. Like, I can do it. I did it on my car.
So it's just like, those older people are probably going to be like your most reliable resource. And also, like you said, with your dealership, because the dealership that I was planning on buying my car from, they're a similar situation. They're not like a chain of like a used car dealership. They're literally like just a small town, like exclusive to where we live kind of dealership. Yeah. And like my parents use them like all the time for like the 3 cars I think they have. And so they just like, if something happens to that car, they just take it over there. They're like, oh, okay, cool. Yeah, we can fix this. Just like bring us the part. And
that's that's to me a big thing. If you can find a dealership like that that's offering to fix it just for the part and not charging you labor, that's probably someone you can trust if they're willing to fix it for you, because they probably tried to work on the car before they put it off. Like some lots that are just like a shack with a bunch of cars on it and no garage hooked up to it. They just went straight to the auction, bought the car, and probably just going to sell you it as is, which is never a good sign.
Well, that's good to know. Keep that in mind. So, when it comes to like those used car dealerships, just trying to figure out like where to go exactly, because we are trying to keep it a little on the cheaper side. I know newer cars are probably going to be like a lot more reliable. But I know my first car is probably going to be a used car just because like I don't have new car money at this moment.
I'm trying to get there.
So, I'm just like, when it comes to searching for, a used car dealership, and when you're looking for a car on that lot, like which ones would you say like stand out to you? Like what are when you walk on the lot and you're looking around, like what exactly do you see that's like, okay, this can be like a pretty good place that I can buy a first car?
Again, like I said, I try to look for a garage attached to the place that's buying the used car, because that means I know they actually put some work into it. Because all used car works is they usually go to an auction, they get the car, and they bring it back to their lot to sell it. But if I see a garage and them actually, taking the time to work on cars before they sell them, that means at least they put some time into it before they're trying to get my money. If I just see a shack that says like Kenny Used Autos and no garage or anything, I'll probably avoid it no matter how nice the cars are, because that means they just went to the auction. No matter what was wrong with the car, they saw if the engine would turn on, brought it back to their lot and tried to sell it to you, which to me is just, it's not good business.
And so like once you get on the lot and you're like, okay, this is the place for me. I'm going to buy my car here. You're looking at the used car. You've got all these options here in front of you. It's like, okay, where do I go? You're obviously going to go to like what attracts your eye first, but then it's also like, okay, I probably got to think about like the mechanics too. So like, I know I asked my brother also when I was thinking about buying a car, and he was like, yeah, you got to look out for the mileage. I'm like, what? Mileage? What is exactly like, a mileage for like mileage to price ratio, and then like what miles are already on it, like what exactly is good gas mileage, what is, if it's got 300,000 miles on it, is it bad? I
probably wouldn't buy a car with 300,000 miles on it. For a used car, depending how old it was, when I bought my car, it had 150,000 miles on it back in, 2012, I think is when I got that car. So for, 16, 17-year-old car, to me, that wasn't too bad of a mileage type thing. So I guess maybe 10 to 15,000 miles per year of the age of the car is what you probably want to shoot for. Anything more than that, I'd probably walk away from it. So that's what I'd look for. According to Google, my car gets 21 miles to the gallon. Maybe it's because I just hate spending money. It doesn't feel like that. But in this day and age where we never know where gas prices might go back up to $3, it might come back and stay here at 2, might go down to 1. We never know. I'd probably try to shoot for something over 22, 23 miles per gallon, something like that. It's going to be harder to find something that in an older car because, again, that was back, when gas was $1.50 when those 04s were out. So we weren't really trying to make these super gas efficient cars, but they still, your Hondas, your Toyotas, they have less powerful engines, so they're not going to take up as much gas. So they still had good gas economy back then. So look for something in that 21 to 25 miles per gallon range.
Awesome. And I think, oh God, I might be messing this up, but it's city versus something else miles. I don't know, city miles versus, I don't remember what
highway mileage.
Yeah, highway miles. Is there a difference in those two, or is it just
there's
22?
There's a difference. In the city, you're going to do stop and go, and it takes your engine more power to go from a stop and start going than it is just to cruise at a constant speed. So with my car, again, it was 21 miles per gallon city, 28 highway. So that's what you want to look about 20 plus city. And when you're actually driving it, maybe that's why I don't feel like it, because again, sometimes I have a lead foot when I'm in a rush sometimes, and it takes more power to floor it than it is just to go to it as a steady cruise, steady acceleration. Maybe that's why I get horrible gas mileage, but that's neither here nor there. But just look for something 20 plus in both categories. Obviously, your highway mileage is going to be easy or higher than your city mileage, but 20 plus is somewhere good to shoot for.
Okay, writing all this down as we speak because I'm so serious. I'm going to buy a car before the beginning of next year. I'll be a senior next year, so I kind of don't want to be bussing everywhere at that point. I like that you brought up engine and acceleration and power, because that's another issue that I have no clue about whatsoever. Because my dad, he would just be he'll drive his car and he's yeah, I'm in the acceleration or the transmission or whatever on this car. And then he'll drive my mom's car and it's wow, this does not drive as well as all. And I'm just sitting in passenger side, what are you talking about, old man? I don't feel any difference. So when you're driving a car, especially on the lot, and they're you want to test drive it, I'm what am I looking for when I'm test driving it? How do I know the difference between this car's acceleration and this car's acceleration, transmission, power, whatever, a smooth ride versus a not so, what are we looking for? Explain to me.
I feel what he meant by that, Hondas, they notoriously shift hard. So what that means is when you're driving it and it's an automatic and it shifts, you can just feel it jump, while other cars, they have a smoother shift to it. That's probably what he's looking for. He was looking for if your transmission slips. So what that means is when you accelerate and your RPMs, they just keep going without shifting, and then they slip into the next gear. That's something you want to look for, because a bad transmission, no matter how old, new the car is, that's a fortune to fix. And that's something you want to completely avoid. Another thing you want to look for when driving a used car off the lot, you want to look for vibrations, especially when you're turning, because that's the signs of a bad axle or a bad bearing. Things, again, you want to avoid trying to fix when buying a car straight off the lot. A big thing I'd look for is going to a parking lot and turning it at a low speed. That's when you're putting the most stress on your power steering. So if you hear noises when you're putting that high load on your power steering, that's a sign of a failing power steering unit. You just want to avoid that car all the way together too. But just things like that, vibrations, noises, how the transmission shifts from gear to gear, not necessarily if the car's jumping, because that could just mean you need to change out the fluid, but is it slipping those RPMs? Is it going to 7,000 RPMs before it shifts and things like that?
Cool, because I swear I had no clue. It was oh, wow, your mom's car does not drive well at all. I'm I don't feel what you feel at all. So just when you're just driving the car and you feel vibrations, that has to do with an axle. I think you said. Was that?
Yeah, so like problem when I first got my car, when I would brake, it actually would vibrate, and you could, when you're driving, I guess I have a better feel of it when I'm driving it than when I'm actually riding into it. I could feel it was coming from like the left front tire. And so I checked it out. There's a test to see if your bearing's going bad. You can jack up your car, and your tire shouldn't be able to wiggle. It's kind of hard to do that over a podcast and show what I mean.
Yeah.
But it shouldn't wiggle like this way. It should stay steady. So if there's any play to your tire, that means your bearing's going bad. So I did that. It had no play to it. So I knew my bearing wasn't going bad. So then I looked at the axle, and like I mentioned earlier, the CV axle boot was actually torn, which means there's dirt getting into that axle, and it ruins it over time. So I had to get that replaced, and that's what was causing my vibration. Also, bad tires, bad balancing, bad alignments, that can cause it too.
Oh, yes. Let's talk about tires, shall we? Because I have literally like a whole list here because I'm like I'm trying to buy this car. So like gas mileage, miles on it, engines, brakes, tires, transmissions. Like I have a list here. So like tires, alignment. Obviously, your tires should be straight. Yeah. I'm assuming when you buy it.
A good thing how to test that, go on the highway and just drive it and see which way it pulls. People tell me that your car is supposed to have a natural pull to the right just because how the road crown is. It's going to like drift you to the right. But if you have your wheel turned like 45 degrees left to keep it going straight, that means it could have a really bad alignment. And that's about $80 to fix. I wouldn't call that a deal breaker because cars need to get aligned here and there. So that's just something that comes with the car. I wouldn't call that a deal breaker. Tire bouncing. That's another thing that can cause that vibration when you're driving, especially at high speeds. So if it's not your axles, which is pretty easy to check, or your bearings, it could just be you need to get your tires balanced, which is something I'd probably recommend as soon as you buy a used car anyway. I'd get the oil changed, the spark plugs changed, to get my tires aligned and balanced, just to get a
So that's just like a cost of maintenance situation. Like that's the cost of having a car at that point. It's like inevitable cost, whether you buy like new, used, whatever else, like those are going to eventually have to be done.
Yeah. So I just get it. I'd probably, even if they say, hey, we already changed the oil, I just do it myself just to have that peace of mind knowing that I did it or got it done. And that way I can keep like a running count of miles before I had the last thing going instead of taking someone else's word on it. So that's just something I'd recommend.
So like, when it comes to like upkeeping car, like we were talking about, there are just some things with a car, like you're just going to have to like upkeep, whether like this changing oil, you're going to have to do that, whether it's new or used, you know, spark plugs, alignment, all of that. It's going to have to be done. And for the things that you yourself can't do, obviously it has to go to a professional. So researching, I guess, like places to go, where are the right places to go? What is the right price for like a certain service? Like, how do you know? Because if you're like me and you go, like, especially a woman, I know this, I researched this.
They
if you are a woman,
try to scam you,
they will like charge you like 3 times more for a service. And I wouldn't know the difference. I just hand you my money and be like, go ahead and get it done. So like, what exactly like should you be looking for research wise, I guess, or like what resources to use to know like what each service should be around?
Again, these are just things you can probably just look up online. How much does it cost to change my oil? They're going to tell you exactly how much oil goes in the car, how much per quart it costs, and the cost of labor. The thing with like big chain car repair places, they'll give you a really good deal on an oil change. You probably see these all the time, $20 oil change. See, that's what they use to get you in the door because, again, no one makes money off oil changes. They want to get you in the door. And what they're going to do is they're going to look at your car and find anything that's wrong with it. And they're going to scare you into saying, your car is going to explode if you don't get this fix. It's going to be $1,000 fix. And when they prey on people like that, and you're going to emotionally react to like, oh my God, my car is going to blow up unless I give them $1,000 to fix this. It happened to me when I first got my car and got my tires changed. My grandmother bought me some Firestone tires. They were really good, but they came back with a bill for like, well, they tried to come back with a bill for like $2,000 saying this, and this is all wrong with your car. If you don't get this change, it's probably not going to make it till next month. So that's a big thing that these big, places love to do and get you in the door with those really cheap oil changes. But if you cannot emotionally react to it, you can probably find really good deals on oil changes and just like general, like small maintenance, things like that. But you just have to be ready for them to tell you everything that's wrong with your car. and things like that.
And not like when you go home for the holidays and your mom's like, this is wrong with you. This is wrong with you. Yeah. You need to eat more. You should do that. And you just have to like block all that out.
Because they're going to really try to get you to emotionally react, especially like you said, like a woman, they're really going, that's how they really prey on people. If they see you come in, you don't know exactly what's wrong with your car and you come, hey, I just want to check up for my car. That's saying, okay, we see that you're about to write a blank check for this car. Let's see what we can find wrong with it.
How'd you get out of that $2,000 bill?
I didn't pay it. I mean, it wasn't a bill. It was just
like them saying, oh, here's what's wrong with your car. Here's what's wrong with your car.
And we can fix it right now.
For $2,000.
And I said, okay, can I just get my tires changed so I can go? So
it reminds me when I got this laptop fix, off topic completely. But like when I got this laptop fix, there was like an issue with like the keyboard, like some keys were sticking and everything. And they're just like, oh yeah, well, we see you have like a little, scratch on your screen too. And this here, we can fix that for like $500. I'm like, that scratch can stay there for $500. It is not that aesthetically
At that point, you might as well just save for a new laptop.
Exactly. I'm like, I'm fine. Just fix my keyboard. So that's basically just like you telling them like, hey, I don't need all that extra stuff. If it blows up, it blows up, just fix the tire.
Yeah.
Okay, so we talked about, buying the car on the lot, what to do, test driving, upkeep, how to, upkeep a car, when it's time to eventually get it fixed, that sort of thing. I'm going to, for a hot second, hop back to, buying cars, because we covered, with older cars. I want to talk about newer cars here for a hot minute, even though, I know I can't afford a new car. Maybe some of our listeners out there can. I don't know.
That's what I'm going here for.
So, eventually, we're all going to graduate. We're all going to get that job of our dreams. We're going to get, sign that contract that says, here's your salary. And when that day comes, I'm going to, the first big name lot there is and getting a fresh new car, because I don't think anyone in my family has ever owned a new car. So I'm ready to stun at the family reunion. So, getting a new car, I don't know if you know too much about, leasing or anything like that. I know that is an option. So, buying new versus leasing, and what that means exactly.
So, with leasing a car, what you're paying on it is just the depreciation, the loss of value it gets over the years before you turn it back in. So, let's say you buy a $50,000 Dodge Charger with a V8 and all that stuff. It's personal dreams. But anyway, so let's say your lease is going to be for 3 years. It's going to lose $20,000 in value. So that's what you're actually paying. You're paying that loss of value that the dealership's going to lose by you keeping that car for over that amount of time. The only things with this is your insurance is probably going to be higher because, again, you have to actually cover the car because you're not owning the car. But if you can afford, it's probably going to even out to the amount that you're going to pay for on a car note anyway. You're going to have mileage limits on it most likely. So if you are a heavy driver, if you drive to here to New York and back all the time, probably not your best option. But if you live 10 minutes from your job and that's probably all you're going to do with the car, go ahead and do it. Another thing is you probably have to have a really good credit score when doing it. So if your credit score isn't that good, I wouldn't recommend trying to do it because they're probably not going to let you without a bunch of clauses and all that type of stuff to come get you.
So obviously I will not be leasing at this exact
moment. But down the road, I guess if you're the type of person who doesn't drive it too far and you like to upgrade your car like you upgrade your cell phone, I'd probably go down the road of leasing over buying a car and being stuck with it for a foreseeable future. So
that just made so much sense because I really didn't understand a whole lot about leasing.
Yeah.
And you're just like, it's an upgrade basically. Because I'm like, when I looked at what leasing meant, I'm like, so basically I'm paying for a car and we'll never get to own it. And then after X amount of time, I get another one. I'm like, well, who does that? But we do with our phones all the time.
Yeah.
So that makes perfect sense. I like how you use that metaphor. Yeah. So all the different, advantages, disadvantages, leasing and that sort of thing. Is there a difference with insurance wise with the two of them? Because I know insurance in general, I know depending with a used car or newer car, a newer car is probably going to be a little more expensive depending on the situation and scenarios. But when you're leasing and like with insurance, is it going to be like, I don't know. I guess I kind of think it would be a little cheaper because it's like, it's not really yours. I feel like the dealer who gives you the car is probably going to handle most of that, but like you probably know more about it than I do.
I'm not completely sure about it. I think it's actually more expensive to insure a leased car because you have to pay for a bit more coverage because you're never going to actually own the car and you plan on giving it back. Because I know there's a wear and tear type fee at the end of the lease. And if it has X amount of dings, scratches, or like modifications that can't be removed easily, it's a fee attached to that. So I want to say it's more to insure a leased car, but not completely sure on that.
That could be the case. I can always look that up. But I was like, in my head, I'm like, technically, I'm just like renting the car, basically. So I'm like, wouldn't the dealer have like more of the responsibility? I'm thinking like if something happened to the car, they would take care of it almost. Or is that like really on the buyer?
I feel like if something goes wrong with it, it's on them, but just accident wise, like accident protection, that's what you're more paying for.
Yeah.
I think I read somewhere like, let's say you totaled your car and you still owed $18,000 on it and your insurance was only going to pay like $12,000 and you still owed that $6,000. I feel like you have to get that gap coverage.
So gap coverage is really what's like making up the difference between like insuring a new car versus like insuring a leased car.
But again, I'm no knowledge. I'm still driving my 96 Accord. So.
Hey, you're doing better than I'm still riding Wolfline. Which there's nothing wrong with riding Wolfline. It's saved me money so far. So
these parking passes are not cheap. I don't see how people can afford to park on like Central and here on Centennial. I can't.
So that's actually a great tie-in into like, I guess, the economics of buying a first car because for students, or for anyone, I guess, like I was really overwhelmed when I started looking into buying that. And it didn't help that I started very, very last minute because I was like, I need a car in the spring semester. So I'm going to start planning for it in December. I need to, research the car, buy it because I had saved up. I knew I could buy it. But then I didn't think about like insurance. I didn't think about like how much a parking pass would cost. Like, what are the costs exactly that you would like suggest people who are going into this first purchase like blind? Like, how would you advise them to be a little like smart?
For one, I'd never buy a car between like January and August because that's when people are getting their tax returns. So they're going to jack up the prices of cars because everyone's trying to buy a car when they get their tax money back.
I didn't know that, so I'm actually going to write that down. I did not know that. January to August.
So yeah, try to buy a car in those late summer to fall months, those year-end closeout deals. That's when they're trying to get rid of everything and get those new year models on the lot. Best time to find a deal and be able to talk them down because they're trying to get rid of it. Again, take your time. This is a really big commitment that you're making. You're making a commitment that's something that you're trying to keep for 3, 4, 5 years of your life. So take the time and due diligence to research it. Don't be afraid to ask for Carfax, ask for the VIN number and look it up. All this information is on the internet, and that $50 you spend on a Carfax is a lot cheaper than something down the road costing you $1,000. So don't be afraid to take a month or two to buying a car. I honestly wish I would have taken my time instead of seeing the first red car with some lights that I liked and some rims, and I'm going to buy it. I really wish I took that due diligence and did my research on the car, Carfaxed it, actually looked under it, because I probably would have bought a better car. I'm still happy it runs, and I hope it keeps running all the way to my graduation. But yeah, just
gotta get that belt fixed. That
just don't be afraid to take your time and all that stuff. It's a commitment. Don't rush into it. And also, don't panic when something's going to go wrong, because when you're buying these used cars, it's inevitable. Something's going to go wrong. Just keep a cool head, do your research on what it could possibly be. Talk to people and ask them if they had the same problem. Talk to old mechanics, like I said earlier, and see what you should be getting charged for this, and see if they know somebody that knows someone's, because that's what I've learned with these old mechanics. They always know a guy, and they know a guy that knows a guy and stuff like that. So try to avoid those chain, Firestones, Pep Boys, things like that, because they're just looking to upcharge you any way they can. Try to find like a little, backyard mechanic that just does this because it's his hobby and he loves cars and knows the ins and outs of a 67 Corvette Stingray because that's his hobby, instead of a technician who's just there to work a 9 to 5. Those are just things I'd recommend when going to buy a used car.
Absolutely. Basically what I've learned from this entire experience is just like, first of all, take your time. Okay. Don't just like rush in there to buy like the first car you see. That was literally going to be me. So I'm glad I had the chance to like talk with you and actually know like, no, Ricky, shiny things. No, like actually look at the car, look under it, look inside it, what are you, making sure that it runs really well, and just being smart, I guess, about like what decisions I make, especially when buying something that's going to like cost as much as cars do.
Yeah.
Because I'm not going to spend like $10,000 on something that I have to get rid of within like 6 months.
Yeah.
Because
definitely.
It's like stopped working.
Definitely.
Well, I believe that is all for today. That was really all I had to ask. You answered all my questions. I hope he's answered all of yours out there. Thank you, Taylor, for, taking the time out of the day and like speaking with me and being really patient about like my ignorance and naivety when it comes to this topic.
No, it's fine. I wish I had someone to like talk to me and sit me down before I went to rush out and buy my car, honestly. It would have been such a big help and would have dodged all these headaches I've been having with this car. But
hey, pay it forward.
Yeah.
Now you like help someone else. Like, and that's what I really love about like this kind of podcast, because you take your experiences. And I think there's a saying that a smart person learns from their own mistakes, a wise person learns from someone else.
Well, hopefully you're the wise person in this equation.
I'm going to learn from your mistakes. Yeah, thank you again.
All right, you're welcome.
TRIO Student Support Services Program and Student Support Services STEM are federally funded college retention and completion programs. These programs focus on academic, personal, and career support for under-resourced undergraduate students. At TRIO SSS and SSS STEM, our goal is helping our students reach their goals. We are currently accepting new students to our program. Apply today. Go to www.ncsu.edu to learn more about student support services at NC State.